All right, we are expecting Tom Sandler to join us any second now.
I'm joining you.
Hey, you're already. Hello.
Hey.
How are you, Tom?
Not too bad, thanks. Nice
All
to see
right.
you.
Now, let's see. We may have to turn your voice up just a little. Do you have any control there?
I do. Hang on.
Yeah.
Is that any different or better?
I think that's going to be good. Hey, you young whippersnapper, you're looking good today.
Yeah, well, you had to get dressed up. I'm going to be on a special podcast.
I have known you for so many years. Before we talk about your famous mom, I just want to ask you, when did you figure out that the best life you could lead would be to attend all the major functions of Toronto and take photos for all the different newspapers and magazines? How did that come into your head?
Well, it wasn't actually something I planned. It was just something that evolved. One thing led to another, and I started out originally doing animation photography and special effects. I wasn't really a photographer growing up, or did I have really any interest in it? As you know, it was really music and sort of maybe acting. But I got this, I was offered this job mixing soundtracks for an audiovisual company.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a cool camera there, a special effects camera, and was just fascinated by it. So I learned some basics, and then I ended up going out with the photographers to do some shoots and do the shooting. And my first job I ever really had was documenting the Toronto waterfront for this big AV show that we did. And I basically learned from self-taught as I was in music as well. And it just evolved. I kept I got offered another job at Harbourfront to become the official photographer and the AV person for Harbourfront for the whole Toronto waterfront. And that's really basically when the dam broke, because, Harbourfront was like event after event after event and political visits. And it was demolition and architectural work, and I had to sort of do all that kind of stuff. And over those 10 years, from 79 to 89, is where it really sort of just kind of unfolded for me. And I met so many people that were doing big events outside of Harbourfront, and I was being hired as a freelance photographer to do cover those events.
This makes sense, right? So it was just people seeing you doing other things, and then job leads to job leads to job. And then suddenly some newspapers said, why don't you do our social columns and go to everything?
Well, there was kind of sort of like that, but I did hit a major shot in one of the papers way back at the beginning of my career, and that's what sort of opened the door. It was the Toronto Star, and it was a shot of this huge grain elevators at Harbourfront crashing to the ground, and I got in a series of shots, and they ran it down 4 frames in the whole page. And I sort of was hardwired to the Star, and I don't know, I just kept sort of pushing people. You're right about the social pages, because I saw that they were being done. They didn't seem to be done very well at the time when I started.
Right.
So I would put my services to the editors or editor-in-chiefs of the papers, and it connected with them. And then, but you're right, you got to be careful what you wish for.
Well, you got so busy. I met you in the mid to late 90s, and you were everywhere, absolutely everywhere. In fact, no, earlier, late 80s. I met you in the late 80s, and you were already taking some photos, but by the 90s, you were off and running. And I don't think a lot of people knew who your mom was back then. I mean, they would have known, but no one actually said Tom Sandler is the son of Ruth Lowe.
Oh, they didn't really join those dots. And I realized that, there was a bit of a lag in my mom's, the memory of people about my mom, or even the knowledge of who she was. And it was such an important thing she did in music,
Right.
Major accomplishments. And she was such a talented and gifted musician that, and she died young, when she was 66. Sadly, she had cancer, and it cut her life short.
Yeah.
And
I'm going to show you a couple of photos, okay? I'm going to show you a couple of photos of the book, and then we can talk about what they are. And also, I should mention, my mom was also famous. She made really good craft dinner in North Bay, and people would come from blocks around to eat her food. Okay, but not quite the same as writing songs for Frank Sinatra. Okay, so let's see. I don't know how that happens. Sorry about
Oh,
that. Okay, here we go. I'm going to see if I can share this.
yeah, we just completed writing a book on her life story, and there it is.
There it is, right?
Whoop. Yes, just a minute. I'm just about to got a call here. Oh no. Sorry about this. Let's see if I
Yeah,
can.
same thing happened to me. I don't know how this is set up. Usually my phone can't ring when I'm doing this.
There we
Anyway,
go.
this
Okay.
beautiful book. So Peter Jennings wrote this, and you basically told him the story.
Yes, Peter did a tribute about 5 years ago. So it was Frank Sinatra's, would have been his 100th birthday, and he did this big tribute and a charity fundraiser up in Port Carling. And he, I don't know how he found me, but he connected with me, and he asked me if I would come to be part of the show, because I was doing this AV show about my mom and her life, and I was just going around seniors places and veterans places, and anyone that would have me that wanted to hear the story. And it was quite successful. He asked me to come on to be in that his event to do the show. And then he got this brainstorm of an idea. He said, "Have you ever sung your mom's song?" I said, and I never had. And he said, "Well, would you consider singing it for this tribute we're doing for Sinatra?" So it really took it over the top. But what really sealed the deal was that it happened to be on my mom's birthday, and it would have been on her 105th, I believe, birthday. It was August the 12th. So I just thought, okay, if there's signs, that's definitely something.
Wow.
So
You sang your mom's song at an event about this and Frank Sinatra. And then did he ask to write a book, or did you say, hey, we should work on a book?
it was always an idea kicking around in my head, and I asked him if he would consider or he would be interested in writing a book with me on her life story. And it was kind of a pretty good fit, because Peter is an author, he's a musician, and he's a journalist, and he's really a fun guy. He's really an easygoing, such a nice person.
Yeah.
And everything seemed to collide really nicely at that moment. So that was about 5 years ago.
I
And,
interviewed Peter about a month ago, and he said he was amazed at the access he had to people.
Yeah.
And he said he had a really good time writing that book. Now, let me ask you about this picture. We're going to go back in here. There we go.
Oh yeah. Well,
Wow. So I'm guessing you're the little guy.
yeah, that's me. That's me in the middle with the cool jacket and that's sitting, and that's my mom beside me. That's from This Is Your Life, in 1955. And the guy on the left side of the screen is Ralph Edwards, the host, and all these other people straight behind my mom, who's sitting right beside Ralph. He's actually handing her a camera, an 8mm Bell and Howell camera. She got so many gifts for being on that show. And the kicker of the gifts was she got a car. They gave her a 1955
Oh my word.
Mercury Monarch convertible.
And look at over here, David Letterman's behind you.
Well, where's that? No,
Oh.
that's my Mickey, actually. It's my dad's brother. He lived in LA. And my mom, directly behind her is Percy Faith, who was the
sure.
And
Percy Faith made thousands of records. I think The Virginian was probably his biggest hit, but he was Canadian and nobody knew it. Your mom worked with him, right?
Right. That it sort of made sense that if you were that famous, nobody heard of you in Canada. So that was part of the reason I wanted to do this book for my mom. But Percy was the original arranger of the song in 1939, and they aired it on the CBC for the first time before Sinatra and Tommy Dorsey ever heard it. And then Percy gave my mom a 78, which I have. The original 78 is from 1930. And I think that's what she took to meet Tommy Dorsey and played it for him. And I think he was pretty knocked out that here was this young, very attractive woman and very gifted, and had a complete recording done, arranged. Right. That was kind of rare. So I think they gave it a real serious listen.
So I love that story because it's a famous story that your mom wanted to get that song into the hands of Tommy Dorsey. And then Tommy heard it and said, oh, I think this song's perfect for Frank Sinatra. That is just an amazing thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, her career and my career, there were kind of like parallels in it because, you know, things evolved for her and things evolved for me. But Mom at that time was playing piano full time with the Ina Ray Hutton Orchestra and
Oh,
Ina Ray
yes.
and the Melodiers. And as you know, the movie Some Like It Hot, and there's the shot. The movie Some Like It Hot was modeled after this band. And my mom's on the left side playing the piano. And it was an 18-piece all-women's jazz band.
Amazing. Now,
You've
you've seen the movie Some Like It Hot how many times?
Oh, you know what? That is such an hysterical movie. And sometimes I look at it, I go, like, it's just freaky because it's the end, you know, it's exactly.
I can't believe it was made because it's so cutting edge. It's so funny, but it's also got a big heart. Nobody laughs at the expense of anybody. It's old-fashioned humor. And you're right, every time I see that band, I'm like, that's based on a real band.
Yeah, that was Ina Ray Hutton and the Melodiers, and that's Ina Ray on the right. And as you can see, she had 2 piano players, which is pretty rare.
Yeah.
I mean, that cost a fortune to keep that band going.
No doubt, eh? No doubt. That would be crazy. So tell me quickly, I mean, this story is really, it's beautiful, but it's also sad. About how your mom actually wrote the song.
It really came out of a tragedy, and she was traveling with Ina Ray's band at the time, and they were in Chicago. And my mom was about 23 or 24, and she had lost her dad, my grandfather, when she was a teenager, so maybe 15, 16, 17. So that was the first tragedy she had in her life. And thank goodness she had this skill as a musician, because she actually became the sole support of her family at that teenage years, demonstrating music in a store to support the family.
Oh,
and that's what.
So for people who don't know what that is, that a long time ago, you would actually play the song. People would walk into a music store to buy sheet music, but they want to hear the song played by someone professional before they bought it.
That's right.
Boy, those are old days. Wow.
It was, really great for musicians because it gave a live musician a gig, which, these days is pretty precious.
Yeah.
And it lets somebody connect with somebody live. And my mom was a very talented piano player, and she was quite good looking. And I think that she, some orchestra leader told me that she must have sold a lot of music because she was so good looking and her talent was so good. So they must have sold a ton of stuff.
Right.
So, but she met Ina Ray. Ina Ray needed a piano player for the night. She came to Toronto to play. And they told her to go meet this girl, Ruth Lowe, who's demonstrating music at this little store. It's a real Hollywood script here,
Mm-hmm.
So she hired my mom. And as time went on, they ended up in Chicago playing a gig where my mom met this terrific guy, a music plugger called Harold Cohen, very handsome, and fell in love with him and got married in Chicago when she was 23. And then suddenly and unexpectedly, he passed away within the first year of their marriage. And that was the second big tragedy in my mom's life. And she was just devastated and pretty shattered. And she came back to Toronto to be with her family, which was my Aunt Mickey and my grandmother. And she was constantly sending the money and furniture and clothes, anything she could while she was on the road. It was tough for her to leave, the family. She was the sole support. But this was a big opportunity. And boy, did it ever turn out to be one, because she got back and she was so devastated, and she kept telling to my Aunt Mickey, I'll never smile again. I'll just never smile again without him. And then she said one night, and within 10 minutes, this incredible song was born, and she just played it, and she wrote it, the words and music, which is very rare, very rare. Cole Porter territory.
Right.
And,
right. It's very rare. Back then, there was a lyricist, there was a composer,
or there were collaborators, Lerner and Lowe, whatever. Lennon and McCartney. Still, that's a great shot of early 40s or 1940. There's Frank Sinatra on the left, a very young Frank Sinatra. My mom, very young mom in the middle.
Your mom looks 14. It's bizarre.
always very young looking. And that's, of course, Tommy Dorsey on the right, who's my namesake, actually. I was named after Tommy Dorsey. So, so my career, even though it took a big slide into photography, it was always in the arts and creativity. It seems now to have come full circle and back into music. And it was always connected with music. Like, as you know, I shot so many entertainers and musicians, and try to document the cultural life of a city and support the arts and great musicians and anybody who was doing something that was a good thing. I would be
absolutely. So listen, so this is the famous song that Frank Sinatra made a hit, and it was covered by hundreds, thousands of people. I mean, even today, in the last few years, Alex Pagman, Lila Bialy, David King Thomas with the Willows. People keep singing the song. It never gets old because it's so true.
Yeah, Kim Stockwood did it too. I mean, absolutely, one of the best versions I ever heard was by Kim Stockwood, and Bill King was accompanying her on the piano. Just the two of them, brilliant.
Yeah, I remember that. A beautiful, beautiful track. So, what was the other tune that your mom wrote for Sinatra?
Well, a year after this was such a huge hit, Sinatra was got a radio show, and he needed to have a theme song, a signature song for the show.
Yeah.
And they have one. And so, of course, he picks up the phone and he calls my mom, because he knew that she was quite the writer, and asked her if she could come up with a theme song for him, a signature song for his show. Yeah. So this was an honor for my mom. And it wasn't like she had another song and she went running to him, "Don't listen to this, listen to this." He came to her, which was kind of cool.
And she went from that song to that song.
Went from strength to strength, and she came up. And this one she did collaborate with two of her buddies in New York.
Yeah.
And the kicker of this was that she said, "Okay, I'll get back to you in a week or so." He says, "Well, we need it for tomorrow because the show's going live tomorrow. We need a song for the show tomorrow." So
no pressure, huh?
Be careful what you wish for. But when Sinatra asks you to write on the theme song, you sort of you work all night, and that's what they did. My mom actually had the lyrics for that one, and the two guys wrote the melody for it, which is an absolutely beautiful melody, and the lyrics too. And it's a very hopeful song. It was like, "Put your dreams away for another day, and I will take their place in your heart. Wishing on a star never got you far. It's time to make a new start." So that was so relevant for my mom at that time, and for Sinatra's career, who was just starting. And it was a total love song, and loved love songs and ballads. She had that depth to her, and she came from the heart. That my mom,
I think we might be of the age where we can barely get a grasp on what it was like to be a pop star, because Frank Sinatra was a young kid. And when people look nowadays, young people looked older back then. They dressed up and they did all this stuff, right? Yeah, they had families when they were young. Everything was young. But when I think about it, he was a huge heartthrob. And both of those songs are hopefully or hopelessly romantic. One is bittersweet and one is just beautiful. So I think your mom had a lot to do with his early success. I think it's a beautiful mix, and I'm sure she was cashing checks for a long time.
Yes, she did, and she was, and it still is quite alive, that song, as far as dividends go from when it's what it was used for, and it's still being recorded, and it's still used today. It's just tremendous. The amount of movies, I have a list of the movies that it's anything from that time. Pearl Harbor,
right?
Good Morning Vietnam. It just, the list is on and on and on. And I even found a Three Stooges, and I don't know if you have this or not yet. You do. That is like, you've arrived when the Three Stooges, use the name of your song as one of their episodes.
I know. I'll never heil again. That is absolutely hilarious poster. We're doing this in real time. Every time you tell a story, I'm ready for you.
You got to realize how popular that song was, how huge it was. I have a number of Valentines, with pictures. There's one with Mona Lisa on it, and of course it's I'll never smile again.
Yeah.
So you'll be my Valentine. So
hey, let's get down to some serious business, Tom Sandler. Your mom should be famous. I mean, she is, but she should be more famous. There are some movements right now. The biggest one is to get her on the Canada's Walk of Fame.
Yes.
We're talking about a young female who blazed trail in the music industry internationally, wrote two of the most famous songs Sinatra ever sang. There's so much weight, and it's so crazy she's not there already.
Yeah. I don't know why, but I've definitely been in touch with them, and I have been told that this will happen, and we're very happy to hear that. Mind you, I haven't seen it yet, let's just get it done, and
cheers to Jeff Latimer and all those people at the Walk of Fame, because I think they do a great job, and they're going to do the right thing. Hopefully this coming year.
Yeah, I think it's a terrific concept and institution, and you're right. This is a mega star, and I just think it'll make everybody look good as well.
They also didn't have Juno Awards back then, or she would have picked them all up. So maybe a posthumous a Juno Award, but the Walk of Fame is where people will see it on the street and take a picture of the star, go home and read about her, right?
Yeah, I think that's a bit more positive. Recently, and between Peter and I, we've come in contact with a lot of people because of this book. It's amazing how many wonderful doors are opening for us. And one of them was with the CEO of the American Songbook Hall of Fame. And they now are going to induct her onto the American Songbook Songwriters Hall of Fame.
Awesome.
So that's huge. That's huge.
Great.
The song was
let's bring it home.
Yeah, let's bring it home.
The American accolades are awesome. Yes, do it. Let's bring it home.
Anything else has to be done.
When does the book come out? Any day now.
The book is out now, and
awesome.
it's on. We haven't had like an official launch or anything because it's kind of tough to do anything.
Yeah, you can't do anything anyway. 2 people are allowed to show up.
Yeah. So the book is now up on Amazon. It can be purchased on Amazon, either Amazon US or Amazon Canada. And we have a website. It's called www.untilismileatyou.com. And that's the name of the book, Until I Smile at You, which is the second line of her song. I'll never smile again until I smile at you.
Exactly.
So,
by the way, if anybody's watching this and doesn't know what I just said about you're only allowed 2 people, this interview is happening during lockdown. People might be watching this interview years from now and not understand why you can't have a book launch. You just can't do it for a while. But I think this thing's going to go gangbusters, and I certainly can't wait to get a copy. So
it's fantastic. Peter did such a great job on tracking down. He's like a pit bull, tracking down amazing people who commented on the relevance and importance of the song. And he's talked to Bernie Taupin, Elton John's co-writer.
Yeah.
He got to Frank Sinatra Jr. before he passed away. He's got so many huge people.
I think because he's so likable that when he asks you something, if you see him on screen or if you hear his voice on the phone, you just kind of want to hang out with the guy.
He's very good at what he does, and he gets places. Let me tell you. As a matter of fact, it was sort of a collaboration of we both managed to get Nancy Sinatra to do the intro for the book, which was a major thing. And Nancy was a sweetheart. I met her 20 years ago when she was launching her book on her dad, a coffee table book, and I was actually doing the shoot. See, this is how the world's come together.
Oh my God, you're hired to shoot her, and you're like, but my mom and your dad were best friends.
I'm hired to shoot her, and my mom made her dad famous, so it all comes full circle. So, but when I went over to her and introduced myself to her, I said, Nancy, my mom was the woman who wrote "I'll Never Smile Again," and she just dropped everything, and she looked at me. She says, "Your mom was Ruthie," and it was like as though it was like her aunt, and like she had seen her the day before. And I was just taken back by the fact that she meant to the Sinatras and to Nancy and to her dad. And she puts that very well in the intro in the book. And
it must be almost like it makes your heart big, but almost stop when you've had lots of time to get over the fact that your mom died. But when someone says something like that, it just brings it all to the present, doesn't it?
Well, it's like, you know, music and especially music, there's sort of an eternity about it. You know, like I don't like people that say, oh, that's from the songs from the 70s or songs from the 40s or the 50s. You know, all of a sudden it's like no good. You know, like there's a timelessness about music. And what could be more relevant than when we're in the middle of a pandemic and there's such tragedy going on in the world right now, is the exact same thing as when my mom was writing and when the song came out. There was the war had just broken out. There was tragedy all around. People were heartbroken. They were losing their loves. Yeah. And it's very similar to what it is now, which is very interesting, I think, the timing of it.
And Put Your Dreams Away, too, is also relevant today because we really have to just chill out. This isn't permanent. We just have to chill out a little longer and we'll be okay.
Well, those songs are, you know, there's so much misinformation, disinformation, dishonesty in the world by leaders and politicians and advertising and stuff like that. Music and those producer songs are so honest, you know, they're sincere. And I think that people resonate to that clarity and that sincerity that they don't get anymore. And
absolutely,
I think that's what makes them so valuable and timeless. And you got to keep reminding people, you got to bring people back to the roots, you know, all the time. And love songs and that stuff is basically back to the roots, you know, for human beings. So.
Yep. Well, there's the book one more time. I hope everyone runs and goes and picks it up. Thank you, Tom. This has been a lot of fun seeing you and catching up.
Yeah, this has been great. I really appreciate it.
All right. Take care, man. Cheers to your beautiful mama.
Hey, buddy. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Okay.